the question that we have today. I am Jocelyn Broman. I am an We the People alumni. I competed back in 2006 at Nationals. And so that was a very long time ago for me, and now I get to judge and with all of my great panel, and I get to hear from you guys as well. I currently work on Capitol Hill for Representative Paul Cook of California.
And I'm Francine Engel, and I'm from the state of Maryland, and I'm a political scientist and a constitutional scholar. I work with the Maryland Council for Civic and History Education, and I'm a lecturer at University of Maryland.
And I'm Mike Miles. I'm the treasurer of Jefferson County, which is in Birmingham, Alabama. And when Jocelyn was a contestant in 2006, I think I was celebrating my 65th birthday or something. So Jocelyn, every time you say that, I feel old, whatever you say. Dane, thanks for letting us come play with your guys this morning. Thank you very much.
Introduce yourselves, and then I'll get to the question.
Hi, I'm Anna Kipps.
Hello, I'm Michael Peeler.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Ayala.
Hello, I'm Sam Pachetti, and we are all students at Raleigh Charter High School, and Ms. Klein is our teacher.
All right, Unit 4, it is question 3. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution provides that state legislatures can determine the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives, yet gives Congress the power to make or alter such regulations. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a uniform election process? What responsibility do state legislatures, state election officials, and citizens have in maintaining free and fair elections? And finally, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the trustee and delegate theories of representation as they apply to congressional districts? You may begin when you're ready.
A uniform election system could provide several national benefits. First, it would be financially beneficial for our nation due to economies of scale. It would also ease the training of polling officials by establishing clear and constant methods, make voting easier for those who move between states, counties, or cities, and make it easier to watch for corruption in the electoral process.
Uniform elections could also prevent us from having a repeat of disastrous elections, like Florida in 2000, where disputes over dimpled and hanging chads caused the ballot count to continue for weeks. Or of the 2020 Iowa Democratic Caucus, where an unstable app and poorly run helplines led to days of confusion and weeks of tabulation.
Uniform election systems also have disadvantages. Primarily, they prevent states from innovating. For example, Oregon recently adopted an exclusively vote-by-mail system to increase accessibility, while Maine has moved to a system where voters rank candidates from most to least desired. As new ideas are adopted, they provide proof to other states that concepts work. After California's adoption of a system where candidates from all parties run against each other in an initial primary, Nebraska followed suit for legislative elections. If elections were uniform, these new ideas couldn't have been adopted or experimented on any scale smaller than a national one.
Additionally, having elections run by more local groups prevents the creation of a centralized system, which would be the singular target for those aiming to disrupt elections. Bad actors like Russia, Iran, and China are actively working to disrupt our electoral system, but decentralization has provided hurdles to their direct attacks.
State legislatures play a crucial role in creating free and fair elections by enacting legislation to enhance election security, ballot availability, and voter trust in election results. Election officials also improve the voting experience by carrying out these regulations, promoting accessibility and participation, monitoring elections for suspicious behavior, and ensuring that voting day proceeds smoothly.
It is the responsibility of citizens who feel they have been alienated or silenced by state voting policies to challenge such policies. In our own state of North Carolina, an amendment was recently added to our Constitution requiring voter ID. However, in December of 2019, a federal court placed an injunction on the law during a lawsuit alleging racial motivations.
North Carolina has been one of the most infamous states regarding election regulations. Two cases made away to the Supreme Court recently. First, Cooper v. Harris, and more recently, Rucho v. Common Cause. Had citizens not taken up their duty to challenge these laws, the policies would have remained in place.
Federally, these elections serve to pick congressional officials who represent voters in the government. But how exactly those officials represent voters is debated. The delegate theory says officials should act only as a mouthpiece for the people, representing their will. This form is the most democratic, as it directly enacts the will of the electorate.
However, it comes with issues. Polls to gauge public opinion are expensive, and often this leads to officials using political party platforms as proxy, which only strengthens our party system. Additionally, following your constituency's majority opinion provides hurdles to compromise, preventing legislation from being passed.
As a contrast, some advocate the trustee model of representation, where officials use their own judgment to dictate their actions. This model allows for easier decision-making and gives educated and informed representatives the freedom to act. However, because trustees rely on their own opinions on political matters, decisions could easily run afoul of the people's interests. A combination of the two systems best serves the citizens. Thank you.
All right. So which theory of representation do you want your congressman to follow? Being a trustee or being a delegate?
My answer would be a combination of the two. There's a system called the Politico theory of representation, which incorporates both aspects, the delegate and trustee, and gives representatives an incentive to follow their constituencies while also having the freedom to make their own decision. And I think that that would be the best system, as it provides the benefits from both.
Yeah, I have to second that. I think that most times in life, a balance of things often is the best for people, and to have the ability to take the pros from each and utilize those in our government has been really productive, and I would say that's largely how we are functioning right now. We have a little bit of both, so I think that it's turned out well and we should continue that.
Are there any voting groups that you think are still disenfranchised? And if so, what is causing them to be disenfranchised?
I feel like especially in impoverished areas such as inner cities, in the large urban areas around North Carolina or even the United States, certain ethnic groups such as African Americans are largely disproportionately counted against because of their lack of transportation and other facilities that are open to them to get to voting areas more smoothly.
I would second that. We saw in Texas during the recent primaries that several large cities only had a couple polling places open, and there were lines that stretched lasting up to 4 hours in some places. And those primarily affected people from minority ethnic groups and racial groups. And so that's one form. I think another group that's largely disenfranchised is prisoners. Some states like Vermont allow prisoners to vote, but many states disenfranchise them while they're in prison and oftentimes afterwards as well. For just anyone who has a felony is excluded from voting.
What about, but for felons, isn't it that they've already disenfranchised themselves by committing a crime? And so isn't Vermont wrong in allowing prisoners to vote and other states wrong in allowing felons to be reenfranchised?
I would say for certain crimes that it's fine to, I guess, disenfranchise them a little bit since they obviously violated the law. But for minor crimes or crimes that, like such as robbing maybe minuscule things, especially for a reason, or other things like that. But if it's something like murder or assault, then that would be justified. But if it's just something minor, it shouldn't be held against them for the rest of their lives, such as taking away their voting rights forever.
The attention that this particular question focused on members of the House of Representatives having to run every 2 years. A lot of people think having to run every 2 years makes you so dependent on fundraising and lobbyists that you don't really have a lot of independence. If you lengthened the term of a member of Congress to 4 years, not as long as a senator, but still longer, where they didn't have to constantly be raising money and where they weren't at the mercy of the voter if they catch two courageous votes. Is it better to have them instantly accountable with 2-year terms, or would it let them be a little braver if they could serve a little bit longer?
I feel like it is an advantage to have a shorter term rather than a longer term because of the constant influx of ideas into Congress. With a same congressman or representative staying in Congress for an extended period of time, that can lead to like a stagnation of ideas, creating gridlock that's already happening in Congress. So with shorter term limits, that can allow newer congressmen to get into the House of Representatives and bring their new ideas rather than just the old ideas being circulated.
I think that another issue that should be considered in this whole discussion on the constant beholden to lobbying groups is districts. Many districts are engineered specifically to be easy to win for these candidates, and that makes them less accountable to the people, more able to take lobbying groups and whatnot. I think that if we're talking about wanting members of the House to be more representative of their constituents, tackling gerrymandering and the engineering of districts to specifically allow candidates from certain parties to win is a more effective strategy to look down.
Who should draw the lines? I mean, if the legislature is going to draw a line to protect itself, who should do it instead?
I think that to tackle this issue, and this is just my opinion, that we would almost need a social change, because I personally don't love the idea of career politicians. And I think that if politicians, when they came in to the government, decided that they wanted to be really effective immediately and not focused on that reelection, that would be a mindset change, and I'm not sure how that would happen, but I think that if that was a switch that was made, we would be in an entirely different position.
I would also say, as to that topic of how districts should be drawn, states like Iowa have created independent commissions which draw these lines, and they focus largely on county borders and maintaining those sorts of structures to create equal representation and more fair district lines.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Great job. Iowa. I will let you all know that I went to law school in Iowa, so I'm familiar with that as well. You guys did a great job of covered everything you needed in the statement, and then you expanded on those ideas in the follow-up. It was fun to hear you go talk about both felons and prisoners, bringing up the prisoner voting in Vermont. That's something I actually had forgotten about until you all mentioned it. But it was a great discussion of how we look at all of this. So yeah, your examples were great. One of the things that you might want to, as you're considering these topics more, I know we didn't get a question and answer about it, but the primaries and the caucuses are run by the parties. They're not run by the state election system. So we didn't get a chance to really talk about that, but it would be interesting to talk about, like, what does a uniform system mean when we have some of our elections run by parties and some of our elections run by an actual, like, nonpartisan government bureaucracy. So that would be something interesting. It was a topic that was good. You did a great job of outlining the advantages and disadvantages of the electoral system, and also talking about election security as a need as well. So great job.
Francine, you've been having to go in the middle every time. If you want to go last this time, I'll let you. This is other states talk about their election problems compared to Alabama, compared to my state. You had some great phrases in the essay. Hurdles to compromise. It's a great phrase. I mean, it does. It makes it harder to work compromise out if you set things up like that, I think. Same thing, I want you to do this one, but I want you to know I heard it. We talked when we were getting ourselves ready this morning about Politico.
Yeah.
And we said we probably won't hear that all day. Well, ding, 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 ding. Here you were. I think all three of us sat up in our chairs when you said that. That was great insight. I was looking at Francine Square when you said that to see if she was grinning like I was. I told the group a minute ago, something I really believe, and that is that the greatest gift a person can have in life is a good teacher. And listening to the way y'all were prepared today and the way you do current events in addition to constitutional theory says to me that Shane's a pretty good teacher. Shane, for you having him here this morning and you making this as fun for us, thank you very much. I yield to my friend from Maryland.
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said. Not much more to add. You know, one of the things that I really liked that you talked about both in your statement and in your follow-up is like innovation of ideas. And you talked about, you know, by having the uniformity of states from innovating ideas, and you brought up the idea of Maine, of ranking candidates. I thought that was a really good example. And then, like, you brought it up again in your follow-up, and I really liked your phrase there of the stagnation of ideas. And, you know, even tying that back to term limits. So the idea of need for innovation in politics, I thought was a very interesting perspective that we haven't really heard so far today. So I really enjoyed that. And I thought you did just a fabulous job. Thank you for joining us on this Zoom forum. I know it's not the easiest to do, but you handled it great.
You guys